What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Snowstorm Studios, the Snowcast Sports Talk, Episode 4. Guys, I have a super exciting guest with me here today, the Entertainah, Chris, one of the premier Giants content creators on YouTube, Twitter, everywhere else. Chris, how you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing good, man. It's a pleasure getting to come on. Got to meet you, like we were saying before we started recording at the Giants-Eagles game. Got to meet you and your girlfriend, which I think was your first Giants game, if I'm not mistaken. I think you told me, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, from the Buffalo area.
Yeah, so I'm actually from New England. I live in Massachusetts, but yeah, that was my first game, and it was crazy how that all worked out. You know, when you agreed to be on, my girlfriend was like, "Wow, I can't believe you agreed to be on." I'm like, "I think, we met him. He got to put a name to the face, like face to the name, and we kind of built a friendship." And so, starting the podcast, I was like, I really want to have Chris on. So just happy to have you here, man, and it's going to be a good time. So again, I really appreciate it. What I wanted to do with a lot of the YouTube Giants content creators is get to know you guys a little bit more, ask you some questions, about how'd you get into football, Giants, YouTube, all that. So just kind of breaking into it, the first thing I really wanted to go over is, what got you into football and being a Giants fan?
Yeah, my dad, I think that's what most people say, right, when it comes to sports. My dad was a huge sports fan, Giants fan, Yankees fan. I'm a Mets fan. I went the other way there, but my dad was always a huge sports fan. I think that's what initially got me into sports. I didn't really grow up a Giants fan. I was kind of just like a football fan. I didn't really have a team until maybe 10 or 11 years old, and then I became like a diehard Giants fan. Tiki Barber was actually the first player I really fell in love with in like 98. I was born in 85, so like 12, 13 years old. I actually named my dog after him, and then of course Eli Manning put me over the top.
Yeah, you got to experience some great Giants football too. 98, I know 2000 we lost to the Ravens, but just getting to go to a Super Bowl, I think Giants fans now, and I'm a newer Giants fan. I didn't become one until like 2016, 2015. So, even just being able to go to the playoffs and go to a Super Bowl is pretty exciting. So,
yeah, I mean, I think I took for granted as a fan those years because every year the Giants were at least semi-competitive. I know like through the Brown years they were really bad, but once we got Kerry Collins, go to the Super Bowl in 2000, 2002, you go back to the playoffs against the Niners, then you get Eli in 2004, and then the first half of Eli's career we were 500 or better from 05 on until about 2012, and then since then it's been, what you've gotten to experience.
Yeah, I didn't have this on the topic list, but just bringing up the Eli thing, I always think to myself, would Eli, I know he struggled at the beginning, I wonder how that would have been perceived in this day and age of how footballs are kind of perceived in football players are perceived in the NFL, especially quarterbacks.
Yeah, listen, I love Eli Manning. One thing that can't be disputed, though, is Eli Manning came into an ideal situation. He came into a team with a great offensive line, a great defensive line, a great head coach, and the most important thing, stability. Plus, they went out and got Plaxico Burress his second year. So Eli Manning was set up for success. And I don't know, as much as I love Eli and as much as I think he is the greatest quarterback in franchise history, I don't know how successful he would have been in the situation that Daniel Jones has been presented, because what does this kid really have? So it is a good hypothetical.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's awesome, coming, kind of getting to experience those good years and then, taking it for granted. And, once we get better, I think a lot of Giants fans will appreciate it a lot more after the past like 5 or 6 years that have just been miserable. And I said it in one of my earlier episodes. The first year of Pat Shurmur, second year of Pat Shurmur, I even remember watching you and being like, hey guys, we're rebuilding, like, it takes some time. And then even the first year of Joe Judge, we were like, hey guys, take some time. But last year, I felt like it was just a different vibe going into that year. After the offseason with Adoree Jackson, Kenny Golladay, Joe Judge was seemed on the up and up. That just made last year an even harder pill to swallow.
Yeah, I mean, last year you had to go into the year at least with raised expectations. Not necessarily Super Bowl expectations, but
competitive.
I think we expected this team to be semi-competitive. And who knows? I mean, maybe we would have been, right? I mean, the team sustained so many injuries at the beginning of the year, specifically on the offensive line, that, going into the year, once you saw that we were scrambling to pick up starting offensive linemen, you knew that we could be in big trouble. And then Jones goes down, Kadarius Toney goes down, Kenny Golladay was down, Barkley wasn't quite himself. So, I think the Giants gambled and they lost.
And you were one of the people, too, and I remember this pretty specifically, being a little bit upset with Gettleman after the offseason and the lack of offensive line pickups in either the draft or free agency, being like, okay, we're going with what we got. And I remember you being like, not a lot of depth, and if we have some problems, it could be catastrophic. And you were pretty
Yeah,
right
I mean,
about
that. I tried to go into last year hopeful because there was reason to be hopeful. Like you said, we picked up Galladay, who was the best wide receiver available, the best cornerback or one of the best cornerbacks available in Adoree Jackson. But yeah, once they picked up Galladay, I was excited just like everybody else with the thought process, okay, we're going to address the big elephant in the room in the draft. We lost our best offensive lineman in Zeitler. At that time, you didn't even know that Andrew Thomas was going to evolve into the left tackle.
Yep.
You know, I thought he was going to, but you didn't know. So I thought for sure, come draft time, we're going to take a tackle. We're going to take a guard, something relatively early in the draft. And then when Rashawn Slater was there, I'm like, that's the guy. I mean, he fell into our lap at 11. I'm like, they're going to have to take him. When we traded down, I was like, all right, you got really good draft capital for the following draft. Maybe you feel like you may or may not have to move on from Jones after this year. It gives you some ammunition to move up. But at that point, okay, take a tackle there. Take a defensive end even possibly. So I was a bit surprised after the draft. I still tried to go in hopeful, but I think after the first 3 or 4 weeks, you knew it was probably going to be a long season, because when you looked at the Giants' schedule, you said to yourself, okay, we got Washington home, semi-winnable. You got the Broncos home. That's a game that if we want to have a semi-competitive season, we're probably going to have to win. And then once we lost to, I think it was the Falcons week 3 or 4, I said to myself, it's going to be a long season.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And the moment for me was that Washington game. I've never been so broken.
Sides and everything.
I couldn't believe it. And, the Giants YouTube media channel and, all the Giants media, they do such a good job propping up Joe Judge as this no-nonsense, disciplined coach. And the only reason we lost that game was because of a holding call on Jones's running touchdown and a missed field goal where, it is questionable if Dexter Lawrence was offsides or not. But the fact that it was even a problem, it was just so frustrating.
And the Darius Slayton drop, too.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah. I'm getting a little off topic here, but yeah, he should have caught that ball. Some people are like, there's no way he could catch that. He's a wide receiver, man. That's what you're paid to do. Come on.
You're an NFL wide receiver. And let me say, Daniel Jones is far from perfect, but Daniel Jones is under pressure on that play, and he put the ball where his receiver could catch it. Could it have been better? Could he have put a little more arc on it? Sure, but you're an NFL professional receiver getting paid millions of dollars. If it hits your hands, you got to come up with it. He didn't even lay out for it. I laughed at some fans that blame Jones for that play.
Yeah, a lot of people want to hate Jones for sure. We'll get into that. So being Giants fan, being a football fan, when was the moment you got into YouTubing, and what kind of inspired you to do it? Just as a quick note for everyone who's listening, Chris, he's one of my favorite Giants content creators, and he's really I don't know what the right term is, but you're just very well known and really loved in the community as one of the premier Giant content creators. Like, what got you into doing this?
I appreciate it, man. I just started for fun, and I think that's the reason why everybody should start, whether it be whatever you do on YouTube, sports, movies, whatever. I just did it for fun. I recently actually broke up with my ex-girlfriend at the time, and I was just looking for a hobby to get my mind off of things. And I actually started talking Knicks, because at the time the Giants weren't really relevant because the draft had just finished. The Knicks were starting their draft, so I started talking Knicks when I first started on YouTube. It was after the Barkley draft, so it was probably like May or June after the Barkley draft of 2018. And I just started talking Knicks, and then obviously football season came around the corner. I started talking Giants, and I quickly realized, because before I was on YouTube, because a lot of my friends actually were like, Chris, you should start a YouTube channel, get your mind off things, you're good on camera. I was like, okay. They said you like talking sports, so I tried it out. But I quickly realized shortly thereafter that people actually came to YouTube or wherever, podcasts, to get their sports information, because they're sick of the Fox Sports of the world. They're sick of the ESPNs. And when you go to the mainstream platforms, not to knock them, I'm not saying they're not educated. I'm not saying they don't know what they're talking about, but you're not going to get an individual. It's impossible for them to know as much about the Giants as somebody that exclusively focuses and covers the Giants. ESPN, they're focusing on all 32 NFL teams. So I quickly realized that, wow, people are actually coming to me because they value my opinion. So I took it a lot more seriously. But when I first started, it was just for fun. It's still for fun. Obviously, I've tried to, basically make it a business out of it and grow and expand. But at the end of the day, it's still for fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I'm always curious because I've been doing content creation for almost 6 years now as well. And was it a bit of a grind at the beginning where, maybe you were doing it just for fun. The numbers maybe weren't coming. Like, what was like that build up like? When did you start seeing, oh, hey, look at a couple extra 100 views. Oh, hey, look at like 15 comments in the first 5 minutes. Like, what was that sort of experience like?
Yeah. The first, I had already grown a bit at this point, but the first like time where I was like, wow, people like actually value my opinion, because I used to be a guy that just tried to break news as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
I don't know how long my channel, but I used to like break videos from my work truck when I was a cable technician. But the first time where I'm like, wow, people actually like really cherish and value my opinion on the Giants. I was at my part-time job at the time when Joe Judge got announced to be the New York Giants' new head coach. And I was like, oh man, this sucks, because I just started my shift and it was like a 5 or 6 hour shift. And I'm like, should I just rush to the car and do a quick breakdown, or should I wait, till the job's over and actually be able to do a little bit more research and have a well thought out video, because this is an important thing. This isn't like they just signed a player. This is like the new head coach. And I decided to wait. I was like, all right, I'll wait till I'll get home. I'll have some time to prepare. And of course, all the Giants YouTubers made their videos, and, it was all up for 4 or 5 hours. And I got back like 5 or 6 hours after everybody had already talked about it. And I made my video, and I think I got more views in the first like 45 minutes than anybody got in the first 6 hours. Damn. And I was like, wow, yeah, Pete, that was like my first like eye-opening moment. I'm like, wow, people actually really value my opinion on the Giants.
That's awesome. That's funny. Even with the Tyrod news, I do these every Sunday, and I was sitting, I'm like, do I do a quick 5-minute video and just post it because Tyrod just got signed on like that Tuesday? Just because, it's like that search optimization and YouTube and stuff, but that's awesome. And, just from the outside looking in, I'm sure you get this a ton, but, I think one of the things people really like about you is like, you're very genuine about what you believe, and, you're very open, and you're very realistic and down to earth. And, a lot of content creators, when they get bigger and bigger and bigger, especially in smaller communities, they become a little bit disattached, like from the community. But you engage with everyone, you tweet, you reply to tweets, you have people on, you come on and do this with me on the 4th episode in 3 weeks. So, stuff like that, a lot of people really love it. So that's awesome.
Yeah, man. Listen, at the end of the day, I'm just a fan, just like anybody else. I don't try to present myself as anything more than that. I try to be educated. I try to, give you guys well-informed opinions, but I'm just a fan. And I think people come to my channel mainly because of that. They're like, he's a fan just like me, but, I want to hear what he has to say, because you get a fan's perspective. Which
is nice. And like you said, I had a question built into the script about some of the mainstream channels, just because I had some questions about it. But yeah, absolutely, it's hard to find that, especially for the Giants. You see a lot of people, from what I watch, I see Patriots, Packers, Cowboys, Chiefs. Like, those are like the 4 teams I see a lot of teams talk about, Aaron Rodgers, and then the Bucks now. But you rarely see anything about the Giants, and then when they do, they don't even know what the hell they're talking about. So,
now the Giants aren't the sexiest team to talk about, let's put it that way.
Of course.
But hopefully when they get good, people will remember, I went through the bad times with you guys,
Absolutely, and we feel the same way. Chris was there with us in the bad times. One of the other things, too, I'm always curious about. So, I started this podcast a few weeks ago, and I was almost a little bit, like, reluctant to tell my family about it. Like, it sounds silly, and, 200 subscribers, and you're like, do I tell people? And, I started doing it. Do, like, your friends and family, like, understand how awesome, like, your channel is and, like, sort of the growth you've experienced and, like, sort of the impact you have on the community, or is it a little bit of a disconnect?
Yeah, well, my dad definitely does. I actually don't talk to my dad much. He lives in Mississippi, but my dad's like always in my live stream, so you'll see him. He definitely.
That's awesome.
Realizes how much the channel's grown, and my mom has a pretty good idea too. When I first started, I think they looked at it as like a joke, and so did I. I think it was just a hobby. My brother's like blown away too. Whenever I see my brother, he's like, Chris, I go into your Giants live streams and I see 3,000-4,000 people in there. He's like, that's awesome, man. You're getting to live the dream. So yeah, I think they have a pretty good grasp of how much the channel's grown for sure. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's just always like kind of an awkward conversation, like with my grandparents. They're like, so how do people watch you? And I'm like, well, you upload it to the website and you can go watch. And so, yeah, that's awesome. And, it's good having that support around you, but then also it sounds like, with your brother, like he's excited with you about it, which is cool too, getting to share in that. So
yeah, I actually we haven't uploaded that frequently, but I actually started a second channel with my brother. We do movies. Oh yeah,
I'm subscribed. I'm in there. I love it. So
yeah, we got to get back on that, but he's been busy. He got married and everything else. But yeah, no, they're definitely very supportive.
That's awesome. And so, the final bit about the YouTubing and Giants YouTubing, and, I'm not making this for me. I'm just curious, what are like those, if someone came to you and said, hey, Chris, really like what you do, what kind of tips do you have for someone maybe starting out? Like, what are some things that you thought maybe helped you that some people maybe don't know about? And it's okay if it's just, some people have told me luck. I've had some people with 500,000 subscribers, like in the Elder Scrolls world, and they said, I just got lucky. But I don't know if you have any tips or anything.
Lucky, you have to get lucky, I guess, in some way, shape, or form. I don't know what I don't know what, like, I mean, maybe my Daniel Jones reaction was a little bit lucky, but I even felt like before that I was starting to grow. Like I was starting to already gain traction before that, but maybe that helped a little bit. But I think, to me, I mean, I get asked this question a lot, and I think the best advice I could give anybody, no matter what you do, specifically sports related though, is one, be consistent, but two, don't give in to the mob mentality. And when I say that, I mean, like, give your honest opinion. Don't just say something because you feel like the masses want to hear it. Because I at least myself, a lot of times when I consume content on YouTube, I like to watch people that I may not even necessarily agree with at times, because I want to be able to get a different perspective. Totally. So I think, like, I mean, just politics, for example, just throw that out there. I'm probably more left leaning, but a lot of times I'll like to watch Ben Shapiro, for example, because I like to at least hear from the other side, as long as I feel like it's well informed. And I think it's the same thing with sports. Like, don't just say something that, I'll give you an example. Like this year, a lot of Giants fans probably want me to say, take Malik Willis. I think it'd be stupid. So I'm not going to say that. But I think a lot of people, even if they want Malik Willis, want to hear a reason why you don't want Malik Willis. And same thing with Pat Shurmur. When we were firing Pat Shurmur, I felt the pressure from the fan base to say, get on board, we need to fire Pat Shurmur. I did not agree with it. I did not think it was the right decision. So it had nothing to do with Pat. It had everything to do with Daniel Jones. So I think that's the most important thing. Say what you truly feel, even if you feel like it's not going to be well received from the people that watch it.
I love that, and you've definitely lived that in the time that I've watched you. And, with the Malik Willis thing, I'm 100% with you. We don't need a quarterback. We need offensive linemen. I tweeted yesterday, I was just watching, I think his name's Devin Lloyd. He's a linebacker. And I'm like, holy crap, this guy's good. And I'm just thinking to myself, we have so many choices at 5 and 7. We have Daniel Jones on the cheap. We have Tyrod Taylor. We're not winning a Super Bowl next year. Like, and there's good quarterbacks coming out in the next couple of years. Like, let's build. I'm with you. But I get what you're saying. Definitely, just a little bit off topic. I had my brother on yesterday, and we were talking about teams we think are going to be the most improved and the most regressed. He thought if the Panthers keep Cam Newton, they'll be the most improved team next year. That was. So, he follows your philosophy, and then he said the most regressed team is going to be the Browns, who just got Deshaun Watson, which he knew. And I said, no one agrees with you, John, but god dang, I love it. I
would say the most improved team, and again, this is before the draft and everything else, I think the Chargers.
Me too. That's what I said.
I think the Chargers will be the most improved team because they've been ultra aggressive in free agency, and it makes sense because you got Herbert entering year 3. You're trying to take advantage of that rookie contract. I think Herbert is a top 5 or 6 quarterback in the sport. Year 2 now with the new head coach, I think he'll only progress and get better. I could see the Chargers being like a legitimate Super Bowl contender next year.
Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of things that go into the formula of making a good football team, but I think continuity and aggressiveness at the right time, the Chargers are doing both of that really, really well together. So I totally agree.
I'll tell you the disappointment. And some people may call me crazy for this. I could see Cincinnati taking a step back.
Me too. I think they caught lightning in a bottle last year, a lot like the 2007 Giants, where it was they just had something going on, and that division's tough. And the
Yeah.
AFC is tough.
Yeah, the Browns I think are going to be better.
Me too.
Unlike, so I could see we'll see. I think they obviously got to address the line in the draft. That was their obvious Achilles heel during the playoffs. Like, they were getting Joe Burrow killed throughout the playoffs. So we'll see how they address the offensive line. But I could see them maybe winning 8 or 9 games and being and a lot of times the team that loses the Super Bowl takes a step back the following year. So I wouldn't be surprised.
Of course. And I remember when they took Chase at 5, or it was 4 or 5. And I remember every playoff weekend I would say, that O-line's going to finally get them. Like, it's going to finally get them. And it kept skirting through and winning each one. I'm like, Aaron Donald and Von Miller are going to finally... And at the end of the game, they did it. And I stood up. I'm like, I was finally right.
Listen, they found a way to overcome it.
They did.
And their defense, I thought, was much better than I thought it was in the playoffs. Like, everybody pointed to Burrow, and not to take anything away from Burrow. Burrow was great. Their defense, in my opinion, was the bigger driving force why they even got to the Super Bowl. I mean, they came up with 3 interceptions against Tennessee. The job they did against the Chiefs in the second half.
I was just going to say that. Yep.
Yeah, I was very impressed with the Cincinnati defense throughout the playoffs, and that, to me, was the biggest surprise with that football team.
Yeah, absolutely. And then just as, another note, one of the reasons I'm so excited about the Brian Daboll hire was we saw in the Super Bowl 2 young, I know Daboll's a little bit older, but 2 young, innovative, offensive-minded head coaches in the Super Bowl. So I'm just... You know me, I followed the Bills pretty close last year, and I was a big Daboll fan to begin with, but I just think that's the right direction. I mean, look at last year's Super Bowl.
I think it's the only direction. And I think it depends on the team. Like, different teams are in, where the Giants are currently, I think it was the only direction. I think they had to go with an offensive-minded head coach because you don't know if Daniel Jones is going to be part of the future of this football team. And if he's not going to be, well, you want to get that young quarterback started off on the right foot come 2023, 2024. And you could say, well, you could just hire a great offensive coordinator. But great offensive coordinators, if they're great, they get head coaching jobs.
Yep.
So for me, the fact that you're trying to mold a young quarterback that's currently on the team and potentially may have to mold his replacement, I think you have to have a head coach that's offensively minded. So I think it was the right hire. There was really no other competition in terms. Everybody else was defense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm so excited about it. And my girlfriend keeps telling me, she goes, you said all this same stuff about the Joe Judge hire. You're getting all excited again. So.
Well, we all do. We're fans at the end of the day.
Of
but
course.
I think it's the right hire. I don't know if he's going to be great or not, but I think it was the right decision out of the candidates that they brought in. The other thing that I think is clearly obvious is he's got a great working relationship with Joe Schoen. And I think that's we talk about wanting to have continuity. Like, the Giants constantly flip not just the head coach, the offensive line coach, the offensive coordinator. We want to be able to build sustainability. So I think it's good that you have a GM and head coach on the same wavelength.
No, absolutely. And I remember when you were talking about the Pat Shurmur firing, that was your 2 things were Daniel Jones and the continuity with Dave Gettleman, because they came in together. You thought they should stay together or leave together. So.
Yeah, I didn't love Pat. Don't get twisted, but I thought if you were gonna, I thought Dave should get another year at the time, and I thought Pat should have gotten another year because, like you just said, and the most important thing was Jones. Though you had just drafted your quarterback,
who had a good rookie year,
Shurmur's scheme, and then you brought in a guy that runs a completely different style of offense. Like it just screwed up our young quarterback.
Totally. So we kind of alluded on it earlier, but I'm always curious, so the main sports media, the Fox shows, the ESPN shows. So I'm gonna tell you what I like, and then I'm curious if you watch any, and what are your opinions on them. I'm just always curious because, being a content creator, we get our information from somewhere, and I'm always, I'm on my lunch break. I'll watch like an episode or a segment from Undisputed or something. Mm-hmm. So for me, Pro Football Talk with Chris Sims and then the other guy, I forget his name off the top of my head. I really enjoy them.
That's the NBC show, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I know. I don't remember the other guy's name, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
I think they do a good job. Skip and Shannon are hilarious and don't always know what they're... But I do like them.
Yeah, I think they're entertainment.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, I think they may bring up good points here and there, but I wouldn't take them as gospel. But they're entertaining. They're funny. It's fun to watch them combat with each other. Yeah, for sure. I think that's what ESPN has become, though, in my opinion. I think that's why less and less people watch it. I'm not saying it's not informative at all, but I think it's become more entertainment than anything else.
Yeah, and so, you watch, so this is where my where I change my opinion. You know, you watch like Stephen A. Smith on First Take, and I know he has different people on now, but they always have to disagree. One of the things I've actually enjoyed about Undisputed recently is Skip and Shannon will like agree with each other and just take a different point like on why they agree, and I appreciate that. Like sometimes Shannon will like go on something and Skip will be like, no, I totally agree with that. And I'm like, thank you, it makes sense. But like Stephen A. Smith can say something completely like found and correct, and then Max Kellerman will say the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my entire life, just for the entertainment factor.
Yeah, no, they definitely go above and beyond to debate.
It's definitely not a fan. But for you, I guess the question was, do you consume any of it? Is there anything you enjoy, like as a guilty pleasure, like, oh, I enjoy this one? Or
yeah, I mean, I to be honest with you, I don't really watch a lot of ESPN. When I do, I like Skip and Shannon. I think they're pretty good. I watch them from time to time. I usually watch them on YouTube. That's usually where
me too.
Because you can watch it on there anyway. I watch Stephen A. Smith from time to time just to watch his rants.
Crazy.
But I'm a diehard Knicks fan, and when I watch him talk about the Knicks, I just view it as it's strictly for entertainment purposes. Like I don't take anything out of it. I think his rants, or whatever you want to call it, aren't even like, it's not even like how he truly feels. I feel like he's just doing it just to get views and clicks. So I don't. There's no. I'm trying to get the right word here. It's like it's not organic. With
scripted.
That's my take on it. But yeah, I think Sims is great. The thing that I like about Sims, he's gonna tell you how he truly feels. Yep. Specifically when he's talking about the draft and his quarterback rankings. A lot of times you'll be scratching your head. You're like, those aren't like anybody else's. Like it's completely off the wall, but he gives good reasoning and it's well thought out. So I like Sims a lot. But yeah, I like the ESPN talk shows if I want to sit down for a half hour and just laugh and you know, see good banter back and forth.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, it's funny, the what is it, NBC? Those are the ones Sims is on. I feel like they've almost seen, because you know what, I've done a little bit of research. You know, there's other little communities of different teams. You've kind of overlapped with some of them. I know you've had a guy from the Dolphins community on your channel a few times.
You're wrong, yeah.
And so, you know, I think NBC, for what it's worth, maybe it feels like that platform is almost like a combination of what you guys are doing and then what ESPN does, and it's almost like the middle ground of it.
I could see that. Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you. I see it as entertainment. You know, I love watching Skip talk about the Cowboys because, like, for me, as a Giants fan, I don't know if you agree, like, Eagles fans and us, it's like a pretty bitter rivalry. But Cowboys and Washington fans, I feel like if I see one of them, we both are like, screw you, haha, screw you. But, like, we all kind of laugh with each other.
Yeah, I mean, I think Giants and Eagles fans are the most passionate.
Of course.
Out of the four. I think the Cowboys obviously probably have the largest fan base, but it's because there are a lot of bandwagon, you know, they're a team, right? But I've always, and Giants fans disagree. Sometimes I have this conversation with them when I'm live. A lot of Giants fans feel like the Cowboys are the most hated team. I've always thought it was the Eagles.
Me
but
too.
It may have something to do with the fact that we're closer geographically. It may have something to do with the fact that the Eagles just always seem to be a thorn in our side. Like, when I think about the Cowboys, I have a lot of good memories. Like, I remember us beating up on Tony Romo in the playoffs and Terrell Owens crying, us beating the Cowboys to make the playoffs, ultimately winning a Super Bowl. So we always have struggled with the Eagles a lot more, in my opinion, even when the Eagles weren't that good. So I've always viewed the Eagles as the bigger rival. Yeah,
absolutely. And so, you know, as a Giants fan, I just appreciate Skip. He's like, the Cowboys, like, this free agency period for them, he's like, it's been horrible. And I'm like, God, I love it. I love it.
Stephen A. Smith brags on the Cowboys too.
He does, yeah, for sure.
It's all for clicks because they know they got to use market.
Absolutely. So going into just like a little bit of the Giants stuff, I do have to pick your brain. Even though, you know, I was coming up with my list of things, and I'm not joking. I would write something down, Chris, and then you'd post a video about it, and I'm like, this guy is looking at my Excel sheet right now. But you know.
What do you mean?
So, you know, talking about the Tyrod stuff, the free agency signings, I was like kind of just going through some topics, and then you post a video, and I was like, oh man, he's on to me. I got to get something different for him to talk about. But, you know, I did want to go over, Unless you're a Giants fan, I don't think you realize what the Giants are doing in this free agency period, but I've actually been pretty pleased with it. I wanted to, first ask you over the past, first week of free agency, what was like kind of your opinion going out of it?
They did exactly what I wanted. I'm not going to, I didn't really like pencil down like a player they needed to pick up, but I want the Giants to go into this free agency period viewing it as basically filling some holes, for a year or two. Like, we didn't have any money to spend. The Giants did what they could. They signed a stopgap tight end. They signed a very good backup quarterback. They signed a stopgap guard. I don't think Lewinsky's going to be a long-term answer, but similar to a guy, he's going to be like a 2 or 3 year stopgap. We're probably still eventually going to have to draft his replacement. But the Giants did what they could. The thing that I've loved at what Joe Schoen has done this entire offseason so far, he hasn't pushed any money back. And I think that's important. I think he's using the, he's starting to build his football team. And to do that, you don't want to, potentially limit your future possibilities by backloading contracts on players that are currently on this roster. He's gotten rid of a lot of cap space. I thought his ability to bring back Martinez and Shepard on bargain deals was a good move as well. So he's done what I wanted, which has been incredibly conservative. But I think that's the right approach his first year here with the Giants.
Yeah, and, with the Martinez and Shepard thing, too, we just don't have... wide receiver, maybe we have a little bit of depth, but you just don't know who's going to be there in September. So, keeping Shepard there and then Martinez, we have no depth at linebacker. We need our linebacker position with someone, at least, even before we go into the draft. And Blake is a guy who, of course, he's, maybe a little bit long in the tooth, he's probably on the second half of his career, but, he's a locker room presence, and he is a good player when healthy.
Yeah, Blake Martinez is still a solid linebacker. He certainly wasn't worth the $14 million he was going to command coming off the injury, but for him to come back on a bargain deal, as provided that he could play week 1, it was a great signing. I doubt he's going to be here much longer, but I think the Giants need to draft a linebacker, whether it be in this draft or next year's draft. We haven't had a coverage linebacker in years, something that you certainly need in modern day NFL. So that's still a need, but to get a leader like that back for the amount of money in which they did was a really good move.
Yeah, and it's trying to find that combination of keeping, getting the younger future players like a McKinney or I actually like Aaron Robinson, our cornerback. Those guys are maybe building blocks, but then keeping, an Adoree Jackson who's been around a little bit, or a Blake Martinez, to kind of show those guys the way to do things. They've had pretty sustainable success. So I think the only one first thing was the O-line signings too. I liked it. Like you said, they're not going to be here for 5 years, but I thought, I think it's Feliciano from the Bills. I thought he was a solid pickup, and especially when you see how much money these guys are getting, it's not anything that's breaking our bank, but it's building some depth at a position that, as we talked about earlier, there's no depth in our offensive line right now.
Yeah, Feliciano is going to be, I don't even know if he's going to be the starter all year, but my knowledge, I don't think he's played center, or at least he hasn't played there in a while. Reportedly, he's penciled in to be the starting center, or at least as of now for the Giants. We'll see what we do in the draft. But again, he's coming over from Buffalo. He's got familiarity with the offensive line coach as well that we brought in. So obviously, he must see something in him. And I think it's at a bare minimum quality depth, like you said, something that we clearly need on that offensive line. And I don't think we're near done in terms of addressing the offensive line this offseason. But for what we spent, you got a starting quality guard in Glowinski, who I think had a 70 PFF grade last year. He's at least a solid lineman. He's coming over from the Colts. And you get a guy that, hopefully can fill a hole there for a few games or maybe one season at the center spot in Feliciano. I think they were quality pickups.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, just, I think one of the...
Basically replacing what Kevin Zeitler was.
Yep. And Will Hernandez when he walks, I think so.
Yeah.
Better.
Exactly.
Better.
Oh, better be better.
So, and like you said too, not pushing the money out, because the Giants have one rough year of cap space, but I think Alex Wilson's actually done a really good job of this on Twitter, letting the Giants community know, hey guys, next year we have a ton of cap space to play with.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
last I looked, I think it was like, and maybe it's changed, but we have about 80 or 90 million, and that's not including the possibility of cutting Leonard Williams or trading Leonard Williams, cutting Kenny Golladay, Adoree Jackson. So they're going to have the ability to have upwards of $100 to $110 million in cap space. Of course, that could go real quick, right? Because we're going to have rookies this year. We're going to have rookies next year. If Jones is good, you're going to have to give him some kind of contract. So, we'll see. But it's not like our cap situation currently is bleak after this year. We have a lot of room.
Yeah, and you almost have to. It might be the one thing Joe Judge, I think, did for us a little bit was when he came. It felt like he kind of reined Gettleman in on the big contracts, and I remember when they signed Martinez, Bradbury. I remember you making videos saying, "Guys, these are great contracts because they're not that long. We can get out of these."
Yeah, they were fine in my opinion because you could get out after 2 years. So I'm always for the shorter contracts, especially in a sport like football because it's unpredictable. Guy could have an injury and he may never be the same player again.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the final, piece about the free agency period, the only thing that maybe I was a little bit hesitant on was the Logan Ryan release. That one, I don't know if you were on Twitter at the time, but I was on Twitter and everyone was coming out, it's $3 million of savings. No, it's $6 million. Well, next Tuesday, he's fully... I mean, everyone had a different piece of information. I'm like, what is going on here?
Yeah, I think in the end it was like 750,000.
Yep.
Like it wasn't much at all, and it's not really saving anything because you're gonna have to pay somebody to replace him. So, to me, that was a move, and I said it, and then I said it when I made the video on it, and I think once we found out the team that he went to after the fact, I think my opinion was right. I think it was a combination of a player that the current regime didn't feel like fit their defense and didn't feel like was going to be part of the long-term future of this football team, but also a player that they respected, a veteran leader, a guy that was really good, and they wanted to go about it the right way. And they knew that there was no tradable market for him due to his contract. He was 31, 32. I think Logan Ryan viewed the Giants' current situation and said, I'm not going to win here. This is a team that is clearly rebuilding. And if any Giants fan needed clarification of whether or not this is going to be a rebuild, I think the Logan Ryan handling cements it. We're rebuilding. I think Logan Ryan saw that, and he said to the Giants, he said, listen, I want to have an opportunity to compete, and he signed with the Tampa Bay Bucks a day later. So yeah. I think it was a combination of a player, a veteran leader that was well respected from within the organization, wanting an opportunity to go out there and compete next year, and seeing the writing on the wall, realizing that he's in the twilight of his career and this team is nowhere near being able to compete for a Super Bowl, something that he's been accustomed to, whether it be with the Titans or the Patriots. But also a player that the Giants didn't really feel like fit their best long-term interest.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like what you said about this is definitely a rebuild from that. I remember Joe Shane doing his intro press conference. I'm at work listening, and I hear, we want to rebuild, but we also want to be competitive. And I remember, oh no. I remember Dave Gettleman. But then you calmed me down. You did a video, and you're like, guys, he's saying that to save face with the New York media. You can't get away with that. They're rebuilding.
Yeah, he's not going to come out and say, well, we're going to struggle. We really win 4 to 6 games, 7 games my first year here, and we're going to slowly, progressively get better. His definition of competitive, maybe someone else, somebody listening may take it completely differently. His definition of a competitive, maybe we're going to bring in a lot of younger players. We're going to build via the draft. We're going to have 1-year stopgaps, and we're going to have a team that competes on a weekly basis. We don't go out there and get embarrassed. We get progressively better over the course of the season. Those are my expectations going into the year. I actually had Carl Banks when I did a live Twitter. I don't know if you were there when I did it, but I did a live Twitter. Yeah, he came in and he talked to me for about 20 minutes, and he actually disagreed with me. He said that he thinks the Giants are going to be able to compete this year. And I get it. The NFL is a year-to-year league. You don't want to take any year for granted, and it's football. And if you get some of the bounces that go your way, you could certainly surprise. But I think realistic expectations going into this year need to get progressively better over the course of this season. I want to look at the offense. I want to see the offense start to show signs of growth, and I think it will with the coaching staff that we have in place. But I'm not going into the year with any Super Bowl expectations or even playoff expectations. And he talked about how the NFC East is a really weak division, which I somewhat agree, but I don't necessarily think the NFC East is as weak as some people may think going into this year. I think for Washington, albeit he's not a great quarterback, I think he's definitely an upgrade over Taylor Heineke, and they should be more healthy this year. So I think they'll at least be a middle-of-the-road team if they have any luck in terms of the injury department. And I think the Eagles, as much as I hate them, they at least have an identity. They have a strong offensive line, strong defensive line, and if they can continue to build off of that identity, I think they'll at least be a decent team. So I don't think that there's any pushovers in this division this year.
Yeah, and I can tell you are a seasoned Giants content creator because you know as well as I do, if we start going around saying the Giants are going to be competitive next year and they aren't, Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll's heads are going to be on a spike on Twitter and everywhere else. And I think you agree with me on the fact that these guys, it feels right. Dave Gettleman's intro press conference, Pat Shurmur's, it was like, okay. But when these guys... it feels different to me, and maybe that's me being optimistic, but you have to build in that year where we have tough cap, we don't have the guys we need, we're kind of transitioning. If we don't do that for the New York media and for the New York Giants fan base, they're going to want to get these guys out of here as quick as they came in.
A stick. I'm going to do you one better. I think it's going to be 2 years that people are going to have to be patient because realistically speaking, let's say we win 5 or 6 games next year, which I think is probably
realistic
to go in with those expectations. Maybe we win 7 or 8 if we remain healthy, but regardless, the next year, if what happens, most people feel like we're probably going to be looking to draft a quarterback in 2023, right? Because Jones will be off his rookie deal, and unless he has he's got to have, to me, for Daniel Jones to justify giving a contract extension, he's got to be a top 10 quarterback. And if he doesn't prove to be that this year, which more than likely he won't, I hope he does. I hope he's a top 1 quarterback, and we're in the market for drafting a quarterback. I don't care how improved your team was over the first season while Joe Schoen was here. How could you go into 2023 with playoff expectations with a rookie quarterback? So I'm thinking 2024 is probably best case scenario right now.
Yeah, and you're a realistic Giants fan, which I can appreciate. I am too. And yeah, Daniel Jones, I think, is a little bit not being set up to fail, but it's tough to ask that much of a guy going into his 3rd system with a rebuilding roster and a whole new coaching staff to then be a top 10 quarterback. So that's why the Tyrod Taylor signing, to me, I said it in my short 5-minute video, but I said, this is proof. This is the Giants hedging their bet against Daniel Jones because they do Tyrod for 2 years. They can release Daniel. Tyrod's still here, and then you can get that backup, and just like with the Bills, the Chargers, the Browns, Tyrod will start, something will happen, the backup will come in. It's the story that's been told so many times.
Or Tyrod will be that mentor for the guy you draft. Yep. Tyrod will start similar to what Justin Herbert with the Chargers. Yep. I think Tyrod started the first 2 or 3 weeks. He actually got hurt, and then Herbert was put in, and I think that's the way the Giants are looking at it. They're saying to themselves, listen, we believe in Daniel Jones. We think he can get better with our tutelage. If it doesn't work out, if he doesn't reach that Joe Burrow level in terms of growth this next upcoming season, not to say he's got to make a Super Bowl, but takes a significant leap up in his 4th year, we at least have that veteran quarterback that we could start for a few weeks and as we slowly grow our rookie.
Yeah, and, I agree with you, too. If Jones works out, that'd be the best possible situation because then we go into the draft with our quarterback and we can just get more pieces around him.
You never want to have to draft a quarterback because when you draft, it's always fun and exciting. Yep. But when you draft a quarterback, it means that you're at least in my opinion, probably 3 years away from being able to compete for a Super Bowl. I know that Joe Burrow is an exception to the rule in year 2. I know you could point to Russell Wilson, year 2 with the Seahawks, but Russell Wilson had one of the best surrounding casts ever with the secondary they had over there. Their running attack, the Giants are nowhere near that. Ben Roethlisberger, same thing, had a great supporting cast with the Pittsburgh Steelers his 2nd year in. So the Giants don't have a roster like that. So for me, you're looking at best case scenario, 2024, where we're at least potentially a contender to win our division if Daniel Jones does not take a huge step up this year.
Yeah, and, again, it's just tough with the New York Giants fan base, but that's the truth. And so it stings, and I get where Banks is coming from, but I think I agree with you. He's being a little optimistic, and I just really like Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen. I want to give them that grace period to actually build a team. It took the Bills a couple years when Schoen and Daboll were there, but look at the effect now. It took a little bit of time, but
I think the way they're doing it is going to give the fan base no choice but to give them that opportunity because the fact they're not drafting a quarterback this year, which I don't think they're going to do, it really puts no pressure on them in terms of deliver this year because the second you draft a quarterback, your job's on the line. Yep. If they fill in the other holes, the fan base could say, okay, if Jones doesn't take the big leap, well, they never drafted Jones. That wasn't their guy. They started to improve the other areas on this roster. Now let them go out and get their quarterback. And then in year 2, like I just said, realistic fans can't go into a year with a rookie quarterback expecting playoffs. So they could say to themselves, we're molding our young quarterback. He's growing. He's getting better. And by 2024, year 3 for this new regime, that's when the fire starts to heat up. So That's the way I look at it. And I think that's the route they're going to take. And if it is the route they're going to take, I think the fan base will have no choice but to hand them 3 years.
Yeah, especially if you see these young guys they bring in, which is a great transition to the next topic, which I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the draft. But I think if the community can see, let's say we get a lineman and a cornerback. If we see those guys ball out and show some improvement, then I think, a lot of people in the Giants community be like, okay, we drafted the right guys. We're building in the right direction. We just need to fill that quarterback spot. Or, hey, look at Daniel Jones made that leap that we all expect to see. And now we have a bunch of pieces. So, yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Chris. And I'm not just saying that.
It's really a no-lose situation. If Jones takes a huge leap, they look like geniuses in terms of being able to get him from what he was to what he now is. If he doesn't, he was never our guy. We improved the roster around him. Now we're gonna bring in the guy that we think could get this team to where they need to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And just as like a quick side note, I never thought Jason Garrett was the biggest problem. I always thought Joe Judge was, and his mindset of how he wanted to play football. Someone said something one time. They were afraid of Jones's growing pains. Every quarterback goes through them, and Justin Herbert, for example, we've seen him have some bad games because he's just growing through them. Jones we've never gotten to have that. He had a great rookie year, and then we played so conservatively. Jones couldn't even make mistakes to grow from them.
Great point. Yeah, I always thought that the fan base was a little too harsh on Garrett. Not that I like Garrett, but I agree with you. I always thought that Judge had as much, if not more, to do with the conservative nature of the offense as Jason Garrett, for sure. And I get that people didn't want to point the finger at Judge. I wanted to root for Judge. I love Judge here. But Judge, I think, definitely had a lot to do with the conservative nature of this overall offense. And you could see that at the end of the year. Jason Garrett wasn't even on the team. They're calling QB sneaks from their own 7-yard line on 3rd and 9. I don't care that Jake Fromm's a quarterback. You're playing in a game where you have nothing to lose. Throw the freaking football.
Let's see what Jake Fromm has.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it had more to do with Judge than anything else in terms of the overall conservative nature of the football team.
Yeah, absolutely. And I loved John Morrow when he said there was just no bright spot at the end of the year. Like, he actually gave a pretty authentic press conference, and I left it being like, I appreciate him being like, I remember one of the questions was like, was this the lowest moment for you? And he's like, yeah.
Yeah, listen, I've frequently been a guy that's come down on John Mara, but I gave him credit this offseason. The way he handled everything, I thought he did a good job. And in an ideal scenario, I don't necessarily even think Joe Judge deserved to be fired, but it was not an ideal scenario, right? Because you were hiring a new GM, Joe Judge did not warrant keeping him to potentially affect the new GM that you were going to bring in. I thought it was the right decision. You could say the same thing about Daniel Jones potentially next year if he gets better, but he's not better enough to the point where he warrants a second contract. Some people may say, well, it's not fair, right? It was the first year where he got an opportunity, but life in the NFL is not always fair. And I think it was the same thing with Joe Judge. It may not have been fair. Like, yeah, he dealt with a ton of injuries this year. The team sucked, but it just didn't fit. They needed to move on from Joe Judge to give themselves the ability to bring in the best GM they possibly could.
Yeah, and I could go on about this forever. I apologize if we go a little over time, but you're absolutely right, because the two things that happened was we saw Dave Gettleman's not a good drafting GM, because what you learn about a general manager when there's injuries on a team. For example, the Browns. The Browns always seem to draft well because they have a lot of depth at a lot of different positions, and when guys go down, the next person steps up. The Colts. But when the Giants took on all these injuries, I mean, Chris, you and me watched it. They folded like a lawn chair. Like, there was nothing this team could do. And then on top of it, you get to see the coach, if he keeps the locker room together and does he keep his composure. He had an 11-minute rant that was just unbearable to listen to. And then he's calling second and third down QB sneaks. You got to get rid of both those guys at that point. That's when you get to see what your GM and coach are like.
Yeah, I think the rant was. I always thought Judge was probably coming back before that rant.
Me too.
And I think once it became a national story, like when it was just a New York story, I always thought in the back of my head they're probably going to bring Judge back another year and try to fit a GM around him, which I didn't think was the right decision. But once it became a national story and you saw them mocking him on ESPN and then the QB sneak, I think that at that point Mara's hands were tied and he had no choice but to make the change.
Yep. Yeah. He put both those guys put the nails in their coffin. But hey, you know what I've said before? It's like, yeah, okay, we hit that low, but I think the future's bright for the Giants. Maybe, you know, not this year, but I think just like you said, seeing that progression, and you know, I had one of the topics here. What are the expectations for the Giants? And I think you already basically nailed it. You know, it's like, hey, let's just see improvement. You know, sort of like what we saw from Joe Judge in his first year. We were losing games by 7 or 3 points.
Yep. Exactly. That year, I think we finished 6-10, and I think we won 5 out of our last 8. We started 1-7. Granted, we beat some teams that were banged up. Burrow was not the starting quarterback when we played Cincinnati, and Cowboys were missing Dak, and you know, but we did beat a good Seattle team. And to me, it's not even about the record, like you just said. It's just about seeing a team over the second half of the season starting to show growth and starting to show an identity, and starting to see, okay, I see a different dynamic with this offense. So I'm excited about it. I'm excited to see the growth of the football team. They go win 4 games next year. I'm not going to flip out. Like I realize where this team is. I realize we're going to be getting rid of some of the bad contracts, some of the older players, and starting to build this team up the way that, you know, Joe Shane sees fit. But to do that, it's going to take some time and patience.
Growing pains.
Yeah.
So, you know, one of the final things I think you and me, again, we're going to agree on the draft and the need for the O-line, not just because it's a need for us, but goddamn, Chris, there's some studs. I've been watching some film. Eki Kwanwu, holy crap.
He's my favorite player in the draft. He's been, I'm not like the biggest like college football and draft guy, so I don't really look at these prospects until, you know, like the conclusion of the season, and I'll start to look here and there. And a couple of my subscribers told me to check out Kwanwu, and I've loved that guy before he was being mocked first, second, third overall. He was being mocked mid to late first in some mocks early on in the process. But you watch that guy play. He is one of the meanest offensive linemen I think I've ever seen at the collegiate level. He's always looking to hit somebody again.
Stud.
He's versatile in terms of being able to play both the guard and the tackle spot. He's really athletic for his size. I think he ran a 4.93 40, had an impressive 3-cone shuttle. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Kwanwu. I don't know if he's going to be there, but if he is, I want him.
Yeah, no, there's a couple guys. Him and Evan Neal, either one of those, I'd be happy. I'm with you. I don't follow college football, but after the season, you know, people make those like 5-minute highlight clips, and you know, you obviously see the best of a player. I'll look up sometimes lowlights, see if I can find like, you know, where they're screwing up a bunch and see what their problems are. But you know what I struggle with sometimes is, let's say, and it's a very real possibility that Evan Neal and Kwanwu are both off the board. They could go 1 and 2. And, you know, so when we get to 5, what are your thoughts on drafting a Charles Cross? Because where Kwanwu and Neal are pretty much universally loved, I personally like a Charles Cross. I think he has some upside to him. And I know, you know, I watched a couple of videos. He's like in an air raid offense, or he's in some sort of different offense where maybe the blocking style isn't as, you're not as robust when you come out. But I guess I wanted to ask, you know, what's your thought if you see a Charles, or a, Charles Cross, I believe his name is, or a Kayvon Thibodeau? Like, what's your opinion there at 5?
Yeah. I like you just said, I don't think Charles Cross is the sexiest of names. He's not going to be a guy that, like, drives excitement through the fan base like an Evan Neal would, or like an Kwanwu, who are pretty much universally loved. But Charles Cross to me is a polished offensive lineman. I don't claim to be an expert in terms of evaluating these players. I've watched some film breakdowns of Cross. People seem to think that Cross is arguably the most polished tackle of the 3.
Yep.
But he does not have the upside necessarily the other 2. But yeah, I would not be upset at all if we took Cross at 5, if those 2 are off the board. If either one of those 2 were available with Cross, I'd prefer obviously Neal or Kwanwu. But if they're both off the board, I know some Giants fans are going to say, oh, you have to take Kyle Hamilton there. You have to take Sauce there. Listen, right now our starting right tackle is Ghana, or however it's pronounced, the guy we got from the Atlanta Falcons. We need a right tackle. And if you have the ability to get a right tackle that is pretty much a consensus top 10 pick in this year's draft, and you take him at 5, am I going to cry about it? No. If this guy is going to be an upper tier tackle, an above average right tackle for the next 10 to 15 years, that's a hole we no longer have to worry about. So would it be my ideal pick? No. My ideal scenario is one of those 2 tackles falls to us. But if they don't, I think I actually lean Cross at 5, because you look at all the rumors with the Carolina, they're in on Cross.
Yep.
They go quarterback. They might take Malik Willis, but you don't know that. So the way I look at it, if I'm the general manager for the New York Giants, I say to myself, well, I need a right tackle. And after Cross is off the board, there's not going to be a tackle that I could take inside the top 7. And there's a high probability that Carolina could take him at 6. I'll take Cross at 5, and then I'll take my best available defensive player at 7. I think if I was the GM, I think that's the approach I take. Of course, I listen to potential trade offers. But if I'm staying at 5 and those 2 tackles are off the board, I think long and hard about taking them.
Yeah, I love that. I've seen the Panthers taking Cross at 6 in a bunch of mocks, which is crazy to me. I guess it's not crazy. He, like you said, it's a position for a lot of teams that is a step back a little bit. I'm a big positional value guy, and the right and left tackle are very important positions in the NFL. What I struggle with sometimes is the Kayvon Thibodeau's, where's his skill compared to, I know David Ajabo got hurt, but, maybe a Trayvon Walker or a Jermaine Johnson, like these other edge rushers. Do you see like the gap between those guys not being a lot? Because, we take Cross at 5. I'm good with that. We're taking like the best defensive player at 7.
And it's not what I want. Like, I want Kwanwu or Neal to be there. But, yeah, if they're not, I'm not going to be pounding the table for Cross. But if they take him, I'll be like, yeah, that's a good pick.
And then at 7, are you more in the boat of, I guess it depends on what happens with Bradbury. I kind of wished we had an answer by doing this podcast. But let's say Bradbury's gone.
With Bradbury on Twitter that I haven't really seen anybody else mention. Maybe other people have. I don't know. I wouldn't rule out the possibility of a draft day trade, including Bradbury.
Oh, good point.
Where like the Giants say, say Zion, one of these guards are falling down the draft board. They fall to 25-26, where the Giants include Bradbury in a trade. Say they trade the 36 pick Bradbury and one of their third round picks to move up, go out and get Zion Johnson, one of the higher interior offensive linemen in this draft. Tyler Linderbaum, you name it. One of the better interior offensive line. I wouldn't be surprised if something like that happened in the back end of the first round.
Yeah, and the thing is, we're not film experts. We're not draft prospect experts. But, watching the film on a lot of these defensive guys, the Gardner at cornerback or Jermaine Johnson at edge, like these guys are pretty ridiculous. And I think any of them would be a nice pickup for us. I'm not gonna be upset if they take Sauce Gardner, if they take Kyle Hamilton, if they take Kayvon Thibodeau. I just want them to take the guy that they feel is the best player at that point to fit their defense long term with what they're looking to do. I think Sauce Gardner is a really good fit, though. I do, because he's a man press cover corner. Yep.
He's got the measurables. His arms are super long. He's 6'3". Like, you don't see that. You don't see a corner. It's not every year you see a cornerback prospect that can move the way in which he does, that is the size that he is. So I wouldn't be upset at all if they take Sauce Gardner at 7. Of course, like you said, provided that we plan to trade Bradbury, which I think we're gonna, because right cap space, we got like negative $5 million in cap space. So how are we going to pay our draft picks if we don't trade James Bradbury? So I think we're going to trade Bradbury. It's just a matter of when, not if.
Yeah, and then, as a final note, too, I think a lot of people forget in free agency, in my opinion, a lot of the good teams come into free agency week 2, because you're going to get players on much team-friendlier contracts that might be just the second or third best person in free agency. The Jaguars, for example, they just spent so much money on so many guys. I could see the Patriots coming out in this second week. I can see the Chiefs coming out this second week. I can see the Packers coming out. Some teams where, they don't have as much cap space, but free agency isn't over. And Bradbury maybe isn't the sexiest cornerback in the free agency, market, but we could see him go some point next week too.
Yeah, I mean, I think as the options diminish at that position and teams see that they may not be able to get a cornerback one that are title contenders, a team like Cincinnati, for example, they could probably use some help at the cornerback spot. I'm sure there's a couple of other teams that people have pointed out, but that's when I think the opportunity to trade James Bradbury becomes higher, and it may be on draft night. Yep. Maybe that cornerback that they want doesn't fall to them, and they're like, all right, we're willing to give up something to get James Bradbury. So I think it's just a matter of feeling out the market and striking when you feel like you have your best opportunity to get as much as you can.
Absolutely. My last question for you, Chris. Free agency this first week. What team do you think won free agency in this first week? Like, who'd you watch and you're like, dang, like this team could actually, I know we talked about the Chargers being the most improved, but I guess, they made some big defensive signings, but is there anyone else, I guess, that kind of...
Yeah, I'm trying to think of I'm trying to think of the most active. They were the team that really stood out to me a lot. Yep. The Jets, I thought were really active, and it seemed like they made some pretty smart signings. Like a lot of times with the Jets, I felt like that while they spent a lot and they brought in a big name talent, I didn't necessarily love the way in which they spent it, whether it be the year where they brought in Mosley and Bell, and I didn't really approach. This year, I actually thought the Jets had a pretty sound free agency period as well, so I'll throw their name in there. I'm trying to think of another. The Jaguars, I hated what they did.
Christian Kirk, man, what is going on?
The Christian Kirk signing was ridiculous. So I'll say I think they're the biggest losers. I know they were the most active, but I think that they could have helped their team a lot better, much more significantly, spending that money in other areas. I didn't agree with that. I like, as far as Christian Kirk goes, I mean, you're talking about a guy that I think is a wide receiver too. He's a good wide receiver, maybe top 25, but you're telling me you can't get a player at least equally as talented or close to equally as talented in the second round of this year's draft and pay him $1 million a year as opposed to 21 or whatever he got. So,
Chris,
if you're gonna money, get a DeAndre Hopkins. Like, I didn't understand that signing at all.
It even goes. I agree. The Packers letting Devontae go. I was like, that's maybe not smart, but then you see how much the Raiders are paying him. It's like, good God, the Packers got a first and a second round pick. They can get a guy just as talented, younger, and cheaper at wide receiver.
Yeah, I was kind of like thrown aback for both teams in that trade, because the way I looked at it was like, once the Packers brought back Aaron Rodgers, the guy's like 39, 40 years old. Of course, he's still great. He's won the last 2 MVPs. You completely understand why they're bringing him back. But if you're going to do that, you have to figure the Packers are going to do whatever they can to try to win a Super Bowl here and now, right? You're not thinking about trying to rebuild and win at the same time. We saw as Giants fans, that's not going to work. So I was surprised that they traded Devontae Adams. But by the same token, I think the Packers destroyed in that trade.
Me too.
Because like you said, you get a first-round pick. And now they have 2 first-round picks. If they wanted to, hell, they could take 2 wide receivers in the first round this year. They get a second-round pick. And once you saw the money that guy, I mean, Devontae Adams, don't get me wrong, the guy's great. He's probably the best receiver in the league. He's a great route runner. But let's be honest here. Is Devontae Adams if he's not playing with Aaron Rodgers? Probably not. So you're paying a guy quarterback money, $30 million a year. That's what like Ryan Tannehill and Kirk Cousins get.
Almost 15% of your cap.
15% of your cap to be a receiver. And that's not to discount the wide receiver position. I do think the wide receiver position over the last 7 or 8, 9, 10 years has become more important than it's been in the past. You need really high-end wide receivers, but you could certainly argue that position more so than any other, or it's at least right there with a lot of other positions, you could find value in the draft. And all you got to do is look at all the Devontae Adams was not a first-round pick. Michael Thomas was not a first-round pick. Several other high-end wide receivers have not been first-round picks. So I hated the trade from the Raiders' perspective, and I think the Packers won the trade, but I still don't necessarily think it makes sense with the way their team is currently constructed.
Yeah, I agree. I think they got a little scared because the division was getting so competitive so quick. They were like, oh shit, we got to do something here.
Yeah, and the AFC West is loaded.
Wild. Last year, I thought it was the NFC West was the best, but yeah, AFC West is crazy.
Yeah.
But we are right at about time, Chris. I just want to take a moment on the podcast to thank you for doing this. It was a ton of fun getting to chat with you. For anyone who hasn't heard, I know some people in my community are maybe new to New York Giants content. Chris's links are going to be all down in the description, guys. His Twitter, his YouTube, his movie channel reviews, which I'll have to have you back on at some point, Chris, so we can just talk movies, because my brother actually goes to school for film. So I'm a big movie buff too, and we talk about it all the time. So,
favorite movie you've seen this year?
Oh man, have you gotten a chance to see the new Batman?
I did. It was good.
That one, I'm big nerd and a big movie fan, so that, and then obviously the Spider-Man movie. I know it's cheesy, but I loved it.
Yeah, it was fantastic. The new Batman, my only thing I didn't love, but then when I talk to like comic book nerds and people that really like indulge in I love watching superhero movies, but I'm not really a comic book guy. They said that this portrayal of Batman actually made sense with, I guess, the time period of whatever comic book that they were trying to portray.
Yeah,
but I did not love Robert Pattinson as Bruce Wayne. I thought he was a great Batman. I didn't love him as Bruce Wayne. I loved Catwoman. I loved Penguin. And overall, the movie was great. It was like a detective film, which was a different dynamic, which was good. They brought something new to the table with the Batman series.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know exactly what you're talking about. It's Batman Year One. So that whole comic book, it's like 14 comic books put into one. And it's all very detective-esque, not that superhero over the top like Justice League stuff, but more, I can't figure out what's going on here. Like I have to find the clues and then solve the mystery. So
I loved it. I loved it. Like I said, my only pet peeve, I couldn't really differentiate Bruce Wayne and Batman in terms of like his personality, which in prior Batmans you could.
Yep.
But maybe because of the Batman Year One, it made more sense that he portrayed it that way.
No, totally. I can totally understand that. But yeah, like I said, I appreciate you being on. Everyone, be sure to check him out. Chris, I'm going to end the podcast, but don't leave just yet. But for everyone, thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to check out Chris. He'll have a bunch of new content coming out as the Giants craziness keeps going all the way up till September. So, Chris, again, thank you. And hopefully we can have you back on again at some point.
All right, man. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Peace out, everyone.